Welcome, everyone.
Recording in
I now call this meeting
progress.
of the Somerville City Council to order. I ask for quiet in the chambers, please, so we can get started. Thank you. In accordance with Chapter 2. Thank you. We're getting started. In accordance with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting of the City Council may be conducted via remote participation. Please note that video and audio of this meeting is being recorded and may be shown live on local access government channels and on the City of Somerville website, and will be available for future review. Will the clerk please call the roll?
This is roll call. Councilor Mba. Councilor Wilson.
Present.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Here.
Councilor Scott. Councilor McLaughlin.
Here.
Councilor Burnley.
Present.
Councilor Said. Councilor Strezzo.
Present.
Councilor Klingon.
Present.
Councilor Davis.
Here.
Councilor Pineda-Neufeld.
Here.
With 8 councilors present and 3 absent, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Clerk. Pursuant to our Rule 32, let it be known that the City Council salutes the flag of the United States of America, and let us recall our oath to uphold the Constitution and the laws of the Commonwealth to the best of our abilities and understanding. We will begin this meeting with a moment of silence, and I'll ask if any councilors wish to say a few words about members of our community that we have lost. Councilor Davis.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to ask that the council remember Charles Sapichetti. Mr. Sapichetti passed away last week at the age of 76. While he and his wife and family lived in Medford, he was a longtime fixture in Davis Square on Elm Street with James Street's James Associates Accountants, and I ask that he be remembered.
Any other moments of silence? Okay. For those who are able, will you please stand for a moment of silence? You may be seated. I'm stating for the record that Councilor Said is here, as well as Councilor Mba. Wonderful. Colleagues, this evening we are taking a few items out of order. We are going to start with item 4.20, move to 4.1. We'll have a couple of speakers for those items. Then we'll move to 7.1. We have a member of our city staff here to speak on that. And then we'll move to our executive session, which is 9.5, before going back to the regular order of business. As a reminder, colleagues, per our rules, please remember when we're taking votes to stay in the room and speak in your microphone, so those votes can be recorded this evening. And with that, Madam Clerk, will you call the next item, please?
We'll first take up item 1.3, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of December 12th, 2024.
Seeing no opposition, Councilor McLaughlin.
Sorry, Madam President. I was just going to ask, could we also take item 4.13 out of order?
4.3.
I'm sorry, 4.12.
4.12, not 4.13. We can take 4.12 out of order, absolutely. We'll do that before executive session, Councilor. Does that work? Okay, great. Madam Clerk.
And on the minutes?
Seeing no opposition, that minutes are approved. Next item.
Item 3.1 is a grant of location from Eversource to install approximately 436 feet of conduit in Highland Ave from existing manhole 15224 to a point of pickup at manhole 15222.
I now declare this public hearing open. Is there anyone here to speak on this item?
I have Jackie Duffy.
Jackie Duffy.
Hi, how are you tonight?
Great, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. We'd like to install approximately 436 feet of conduit on Highland Ave, and we need this to replace the existing duct bank that is damaged.
Okay, any questions or comments from my colleagues? Anyone else here wish to speak on this item? Okay, seeing no one else, I declare this public hearing closed. Seeing no opposition, this item is approved. Next item.
Item 3.2 is a grant of location from Eversource to install approximately 86 feet of conduit in Somerville Ave from existing manhole 8655 to a handhole at 52 McGrath Highway.
I now declare this public hearing open. Is there anyone here to speak on this item? Jackie Duffy.
Jackie Duffy, Eversource would like to install 86 feet of conduit in Somerville Avenue, and this is to provide electricity to a gas telemeter cabinet, which will measure the gas levels.
Okay, anyone else here to speak on this item? Okay, seeing no one else, I declare this public hearing closed. Any questions from my colleagues? Seeing none, this item is approved. Next item.
Item 3.3 is a grant of location from Eversource to install approximately 61 feet of conduit in Lowell Street from utility pole 215/35 to a point of pickup at 326 Lowell Street.
I declare this public hearing open. Is there anyone here to speak on this item? Jackie Duffy.
Jackie Duffy, Eversource. We'd like to install 61 feet of conduit on Lowell Street to provide electric service to 326 Lowell Street, which is going to be a residential building.
Anyone else here to speak on this item? Seeing none, I declare this public hearing closed. Any colleagues wish to speak on this item? Questions? Okay, seeing none, this item's approved. Next item.
Thank you. Have a nice night, everybody.
First item that we are taking out of order, which is item 4.20, a resolution by Councilors McLaughlin and Klingon that the Memorialization Committee dedicate a memorial to Kenneth Lonigan.
Councilor Klingon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Madam President, through you. So, as you remember, a few weeks ago, Councilor McLaughlin gave a great moment of silence for former teacher Kenneth Lonigan. I also spoke about him and his impact here in Somerville. Well, since then, it came to my attention that a former student of his and a local resident started a petition to have something somewhere, some sort of tribute to Mr. Lonigan on the high school grounds, in the high school, something along that nature. It's not, I don't think he's really being too picky or specific. It's just a tribute to a man who had an enormous impact in this community. So so it has about 430 signatures, the petition, and I'm sure these are all people who have been impacted by Mr. Lonigan through the years. And so with that, I thought, it made sense to me. I think it's a great idea. I think it would be a great tribute to a great person who had such an impact. So Councilor McLaughlin and I decided to bring this forward. Now, I know the wording says Memorialization Committee, and that does get a little tricky because as far as the Memorialization Committee goes, that is a body that's been constituted to name assets, like future assets or current assets, such as a new space for a park. So I'm thinking maybe tweaking this a little bit, but ultimately, since there isn't any assets in the near future, and besides, this is very specific to the high school and the Central Hill campus, this request, I think it would be appropriate to move further on with this discussion in a committee. So I'm not sure which committee that would be, but that aside, I just want to sponsor the initiator of the petition, Sean Zabricki, who was a Somerville High graduate, Somerville resident. I believe he is online on Zoom and would like to say a few words if colleagues wouldn't mind me sponsoring.
Mr. Zabricki, can you hear us? Are you able to unmute yourself?
I can, yes.
Wonderful. Welcome. Please also share your name again so we can note it for the record.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Just share your name one more time so we can note it.
Sure. Zubricki.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, basically to piggyback what Jesse was saying, anybody that's been in the city for a decent amount of time definitely has heard of Mr. Kenneth Lonigan. He's had a great impact on my life, thousands of kids' lives. The high school itself. While I went to school there was a lot of racial tension that he, was on the news, and he actually helped bring peace to that. He stayed late for the drama club and ran and directed plays for that. He was just a man of service pretty much. And he was there for over 30 years. So I just seen it was fit that I started a petition to get a plaque maybe dedicated to him or something over there along those lines in the high school, a wing named after him, something to just remember him by, seeing since the impact that he did have in the community and the school itself. I just, I thought it was the least we could do for a man of his caliber.
Councilor Cleon?
Thank you. And so I don't know, Councilor McLaughlin is the originator, the lead sponsor on it. I don't know if, in terms of rewording it, to have a discussion and maybe housing and community development. The Memorialization Committee is very specific in what they name and what they can't name. So
Councilor McLaughlin?
So on that, Madam President, so yeah, there's a few options. I did speak to a liaison just a moment ago who said, yeah, memorialization might not be the best committee, so there's two paths. We could put it in housing. We could also, it sounds like there is an intent to do something already, which is great. We could approve this item and follow up on it later. And the only 2 cents I'd like to add is, if it were up to me, and I'd love other people who, a lot of people signed this document, this petition too, which was very moving. And my 2 cents, if I were to pick a place, I would love to have a plaque in the school right next to the in-house detention center where Mr. Lonigan used to supervise kids, if in-house detention still exists. But something like that would be very nice so that kids who go down the wrong path can be reminded that someone cared about them. So that would be my 2 cents. It could go to committee or we can mark it work approved.
Madam Clerk, on that.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll just comment that the Memorialization Committee is actually the right place if you're looking for something to be named in the schools. That is the committee that does the various school rooms and spaces and different things like that. So I think you've done it correctly if that is what your goal is.
Okay, then, Madam President, on that, I would just say that there's some miscommunication then, I think, that as to what the body is charged with doing, but we'll send it there, that's fine, and if that, if this all checks out, then we can handle it in there.
Okay, Councilor Burnley.
Thank you, through the chair. I think this is a great effort. I think we should always try to be honoring our educators for the work that they do and their service. I will note, as a formerly person on the Memorialization Committee, any resident of Somerville is allowed to put forward a name to the Memorialization Committee. If you go to the city's website and go to the Memorialization page, there is a way to submit a name. That I have heard previously from the committee that putting forward items on the council is not the proper way to do it. I'm sure they'll hear about it as they have before, then they can make what they will of it. But any resident of the city is able to just submit a name online, make the case about why this person has created a positive impact on the city of Somerville, and the committee will then vote to put that person on a list of potential honorees who a parcel can be dedicated to. From the last time I was on the committee, there were many assets in the high school that had yet to be named. So I'm sure, as long as there hasn't been a slew of new activity that I'm unaware of, that there is certainly a possibility that this can happen in the near future. But just want to make that point.
Madam Clerk, Councilor Davis would like to sign on to this as well. Councilor Clean.
Thank you, Madam President. That's great news. I think there's a lot of miscommunication about how that committee is supposed to operate. So I appreciate that, and it sounds like we're well on our way then. And, again, I just want to say I'd be honored to have his name somewhere in the school. As mentioned last time, we here in Somerville are honored that he is from Somerville, but that he also made so many people happy as they arrived in Nantucket. Provincetown as they arrived. And so he's led an extraordinary life, so I think it's more than fitting, and I appreciate Mr. Zabricki's efforts. And it sounds like we'll send this to Memorialization Committee and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Councilor, Director Singh would like to speak on this. If you're all good with hearing what she has to say, I'll sponsor her to speak. Welcome.
Through the President, thank you so much. Hopefully my comments can help clarify some of the confusion. So based on my brief conversation with the staff liaison to the committee, my understanding that they can only memorialize a room, a hallway, a field, an asset when it was first built. When the high school was first built, the committee worked to determine the memorialization of all of the assets in the building. There are no remaining assets in the high school that are open to be memorialized. So that is the reason why we are unable to move forward with this pathway. Thank you.
Councilor Killian.
Okay, I would move to change that at some point, but for now, okay, I guess I don't know what to do then. I mean, I just sent it to the committee. The former person from the committee said that there's plenty of things to name. Let's just send it to committee and we'll figure it out.
Councilor McLaughlin.
I would suggest let's send it to housing just so we have something to talk about in the future.
Madam Chair,
Councilor Strezzo?
I will do a due diligence. We'll make sure we'll have a nice process.
Okay, this item will be sent to Housing and Community Development. Next item.
The next item is item 4.1, an order by Councilor Strezzo that the Director of Parks and Recreation discuss in the Committee on Equity, Gender, Seniors, Families, and Vulnerable Populations the introduction of an ongoing middle school girls intramural hockey program.
Councilor Strezzo?
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to actually not do any of the talking on this. I would love to have sponsor Annette McKee and Natalie Zielinski to speak on this item, if I may.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Annette McKee. I served on the board of Somerville Youth Hockey for 4 years, 2 of those years as president, and I am currently in a small parent group working to grow girls hockey in Somerville. We believe that a middle school intramural girls hockey program is an equity issue, an inclusivity issue, and sustainability issue. Let me explain. Hockey is a cultural sports touchstone in Boston. There are the Bruins, the new women's professional team, the Fleet, and outstanding Division I college hockey. You all probably saw that there were over 13,000 people who attended the Women's Beanpot Hockey Championship 2 nights ago at TD Garden. Almost every town in the area has a public hockey rink, and there are learn-to-play hockey opportunities for kids, women, and men everywhere. Yet, many kids, and especially girls, do not have real opportunity and access to participating in this wildly popular sport. Hockey, for one thing, can be expensive. Families dish out over $3,000 or more to play club hockey. Even a nonprofit town program like Somerville Youth Hockey costs over $1,700. Furthermore, girls face additional barriers. There's the persistent misconception and bias that hockey is a boys' sport, that hockey is overly aggressive and not really appropriate for girls, even though in girls' hockey there is no checking. If a girl in Somerville wanted to play on an all-girls team, she can't play with Somerville Youth Hockey because they do not offer any girls-only teams at any level. In fact, there is no girls' hockey team at Somerville High School. There is an underinvestment in girls' hockey in this town. Middle school, a city-run middle school intramural girls hockey program could help address this deficit by its expanding inclusivity. Why? Because middle school sports are free. Kids can participate at no cost to their families. Additionally, every girl at a public middle school in Somerville can join a middle school team, can play, whether or not she has any hockey experience, because middle school sports focus on skill development over competition, unlike high school sports. It can I'm sorry. And according to the Women's Sports Foundation, at this middle school age, girls drop out of sports at twice the rate of boys. So a girls' middle school program could attract additional girls to hockey. This would drive, health indicators for adolescents, and also might prepare the ground for a future girls' hockey team at Somerville High. We believe that a city-run middle school intramural girls' hockey program, in tandem with partnering with like a nonprofit community-based organization like Somerville Youth Hockey can provide the sustainable foundations for building girls hockey in Somerville. Not only does it help open up access to girls playing hockey, it opens up access for girls to sports in general. Thank you. I'd also like to introduce Natalie, who started hockey when she was 12 at a co-ed program that was offered by Somerville Youth Hockey. It was a small, continues to be a small class for girls and boys, 9 years old and older, who want to play hockey. And currently she plays with the Medford High varsity team because there is no Somerville high school team.
Hello, my name is Natalie Zielinski, and I'm a freshman at Somerville High School. I started playing hockey in the 6th grade, and am currently a part of Medford High School girls varsity team. Before I started, I thought that I was too old to learn, but I quickly discovered that this misconception is false. Many people think that the skills required for the game takes a very long time to learn, and it is too late for middle school students to start. While it does take time and effort, like all sports, hockey can be learned in middle school just like volleyball or soccer. Additionally, girls have specific needs. For example, they need their own space without boys to develop skills and learn to play confidently with a team that represents and supports them. Girls also have social needs. Unfortunately, right now on social media, it is very easy to find distortions that feature anorexic imagery and women and girls as helpless. Hockey can help cultivate a self-image that is athletic, healthy, and overall positive for the young girls and teens in Somerville. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davis?
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you both for speaking. I actually have a couple of clarifying questions. Annette, if you're available.
Annette, there's some clarifying questions for you if you're open.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, so first off, thank you for your work on this. Thank you to Councillor Scherzer for bringing this. I was over the moon when I saw this on the agenda. I'll keep my personal background in the area as brief as I can, but suffice it to say, I've spent probably more time involved in coaching and pushing for girls hockey than anything other than my day job, my family, and this job over the last probably 10 years. It is an unbelievable sport. It's an unbelievable specific area of the sport, and I completely agree with everything that you've heard tonight. And I would say it was vastly understated how amazing it is to see girls in this environment. I've coached co-ed teams. I currently coach a high school age girls team that's in Cambridge Youth Hockey, had some Somerville girls on it. Natalie, you were on our list to get on that team at some point. Maybe next year we'll get you on there. My daughter played for Somerville High School when they had a co-op with Cambridge. As a clarification, Somerville technically has a girls team, but it's not based in Somerville. It's a co-ed. It's a co-op with 4 other cities, I believe, that make up the Greater Boston League schools. Because we just don't have enough girls playing hockey in Somerville and staying in Somerville to play hockey to form a high school team. And I completely share the goal that would be wonderful. If we could develop, even through the girls who play hockey in this city, we could have a pretty strong team. And it would be awesome to see the Highlanders out there competing and winning. I was also at that game the other night, and I'm a season ticket holder of the Fleet. And if you didn't think that girls hockey was a big deal in Somerville 10 years ago, you should see it now. It is both in this area and nationally absolutely exploding, and so the timing is fantastic. So through you, Madam President, to Annette, I think you answered my question, but I just want to make sure I understand. So the proposal is to have an intramural program, meaning just within Somerville. This wouldn't be playing other cities. Is that correct for you?
Yes, that's right. We recently met with the athletic director, Stan Vieira, and one of the challenges is that there does not seem to be any other middle school girls team. And we're not talking about a Valley Hockey League middle school team because that's composed of town and club kids who happen to be middle school age. We're talking about a middle school team that is run by public schools. However, we are actually in conversation with other towns, and there's a lot of interest in growing girls hockey at a grassroots way, in the region. So an intramural team would consist of, ideally, it would have a Kennedy team versus an Argenziano team. I just don't think that we could get that many girls in the door right away, but we could have two small teams, like a Somerville Red versus a Somerville Blue, and just make it fun.
Okay, thank you. Madam President, if I could continue through you, so thank you. That I agree. Great way to start the conversation, and certainly given the timing, I could certainly imagine something like that growing. I also think it would be a great way to ultimately support both existing varsity programs and a future varsity program to get students thinking about playing for their school, because girls hockey in particular is really dominated by clubs, and as I said, Somerville has produced some excellent hockey players over the years. Just nobody knows they're from Somerville because they never played here for the most part, other than perhaps in co-ed teams. I do want to say one other thing. So, as I mentioned, I've put a lot of time into this over the years, and for those who remember Mayor Curtitone's farewell speech, one of the things he said to me directly was, we're going to get that girls hockey program going. Unfortunately, we haven't, and we really haven't followed that conversation up. But years ago, I tried so my daughter played hockey through, she actually still plays for the Northeastern Club team. And we tried to get create a combined program in the youth at the youth level, the Somerville Youth Hockey and Cambridge Youth Hockey, and the Cambridge folks were on board. Mayor Curtitone was on board. He committed support. He said, we'll get some sponsorship. We can create. This is not an uncommon thing. A lot of towns will have combined programs, and sometimes they'll even rebrand as not Somerville or not Cambridge, but for example, there's well, whatever. There are plenty of examples around where towns come together to share resources. The roadblock was, at least by my observation, was Somerville Youth Hockey. The folks there, and in my opinion, the reason why we don't have a robust girls program in Somerville is that Somerville Youth Hockey has never invested the time and energy and efforts and resources into creating it, and that really should start from the ground up. And I suspect, given that you and I have talked about this when you were president of that organization, I suspect that the reason you're here now is you're looking for some other way to do it because you just don't see an avenue there. But I don't want to put words into your mouth. And so I'll stop after this question, and we can send it to committee, and I would very much, whatever committee it goes to, I suspect perhaps Councilor Strezzo's committee, so I'd love to be involved in that conversation. But is there also, through you, Madam President, is there also an effort to try and get Somerville Youth Hockey to focus on developing a youth program? A girl-specific youth program?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. I just want to be really clear that I have nothing negative to say about Somerville Youth Hockey currently. I think that that the board, especially the president and the vice president, are doing an amazing job. Both of them are currently on this parent group. What we have realized is that there are barriers to growing girls hockey, and a nonprofit, volunteer-run, community-based youth sports organization cannot shoulder this alone. The city has to be involved, either through the public schools, if we could potentially create a small travel league, and or with an intramural girls program.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. I mean, I guess, well, I have a different opinion, and I think that some of my frustration does lie in that organization, and I think there needs to be, and it's, as I said, it's not the current folks that are running it. And I am glad that there's some collaboration there now. Go Lab Rats. There's some combined teams that are sharing resources, co-ed teams. So I'll stop. We've talked a lot about hockey. I could go on forever, but I know most of you don't share the same passion I do about the sport, but hopefully, so to be clear though, I think this idea is great because I tried and we couldn't get it going through the youth program, and I focused my efforts in Cambridge where they were very focused on developing a girls program and have done so successfully in the time that my children have been there. So let's try a different approach. I think this is a great idea. It'll bring equity, and it just so happens that we actually own what could be a hockey rink that maybe could be a resource that we could help provide ice time and capacity. So I know there's a current item in one of our committees about the future of Founders Rink, and just saying, we own an ice rink. Thank you.
Councilors Ewan-Campen and Wilson would like to sign on. Councilor Said and Burnley as well, and the whole council would like to sign on. Is that a hand to speak, Councilor Klingon, or just signing on? Okay, great. Any other questions, comments? All right, so you'd like to send to equity, so we'll send this item to equity. Next item, thank you.
The next item will be item 7.1, a request of the mayor, requesting the appropriation of $186,343 from free cash to the building insurance account to insure additional properties.
Okay, colleagues, we have Treasurer Dubuque here with us this evening. Would you like to start us off, Treasurer?
Good evening, Madam President. To you and through you to the full council, thank you so much for taking this item out of order. I am truly grateful. My name is Linda Dubuque. I serve as the treasurer and collector. Before you is a supplemental budget request from free cash, requesting $186,000 to be added to the city's $1.2 million insurance budget for the purpose of insuring 2 vacant buildings. The city's insurance company removed 2 structures from the master policy because they're vacant, 115 Sycamore Street and 45 College Ave. Allowing this supplemental appropriation will insure these 2 buildings. Vacant building insurance is difficult to obtain in the current market, but we were able to secure a policy. And it's advisable to have insurance on the 2 structures because in the event of a loss, insurance would help offset some costs, like demolition, for example. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions, colleagues? Councilor Wilson.
Thanks, Madam President. I'm just going to point out 115 Sycamore is the Winter Hill School. For anyone who doesn't know the address, just important that people understand we're talking about that building. Thanks.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, I'll never say no to Ms. Dubuque. I'll certainly move for approval, but I have one request. Outside the Winter Hill School, there's like a sign where they used to put notifications, and there's like just a rotting piece of paper that says like see you later, students. Just please take that down. It's really it's crazy to me that we've left it in that state. Thank you.
Was that a motion for approval as well, Councilor?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion? Do we need to take roll on this? Okay, this item's approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, we're going to go to 412.
The next item will be item 4.12, an order by Councilor McLaughlin that the Director of Summer Viva update the Committee on Public Health and Public Safety on efforts to address immigrant rights.
Please sign me on, Madam Clerk. Councilor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Madam President, for indulging me. I didn't want to wait till after executive session for this. But I want to talk about it because I'm sure we've all been getting calls. We've all been seeing in the news what's happening right now with the Trump administration and his ICE raids and his threats to immigrants in the community and to the cities like Boston specifically. And it's very concerning, and I think, he said he was going to do this, so he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do. I don't think people anticipated the speed and ferocity of how this was going to happen, but there's real fear out there right now in the community, in my neighborhood in particular, and I want to be able to do what I can in my capacity to address these fears and to make sure people feel like they're still welcome in this community. Talking to a lot of people in the community right now, again, there's fear. There's people, ICE agents at supermarkets. There's threats of going into churches and schools. And this is all intentional. It's intentionally making people afraid to go about their day-to-day lives. And that is what their objective is to just scare people. But I've also talked to people who say, people are also kind of used to this, that this isn't new, that this has been a historic issue in America where immigrants are demonized and vilified and persecuted for just trying to survive. And people treated like second-class citizens, even though, the citizenship, even if you're not a citizen, you are protected under the Constitution of the United States with certain rights that our president is now publicly saying that you no longer have these rights. Overruling the Constitution with birthright citizenship, threatening to harm cities that do not enforce federal law, which is not our responsibility, all outlined in the Constitution, all very well documented within Supreme Court cases, there's precedents that you can't do this. But now the rules have completely changed. We don't know what is true and what's not anymore, and if the president can just do whatever he wants. So this is really concerning to myself and to everyone in this room, I'm sure. And I want to do what I can in my limited capacity as a counselor and as the chair of the Public Health and Safety Committee, where we've done a lot of good work on homelessness over the last few years, just highlighting what the city's doing, what we could do better, bring in people together to talk about how to work together, because a lot of people, including myself, don't have all the answers and don't know exactly what we can do to help people. And I just want to start that conversation. So this is just one order to just bring people together into a room and start talking about, what we can do to work together. And that's it. I'm just hoping that we can assure people that they belong in this community and protect people when we can. So I'd like this to go to Public Health and Safety.
Councilor Klingon would like to sign on as well. Councilor McLaughlin, I'd like to just share an anecdote. An hour ago, I was prepping for the meeting with the clerk, and I got a text message from a close friend of mine who works with youth in Somerville, who was at an event at the high school. She asked me to check on an unmarked van that was sitting outside because her students were afraid to leave. They thought it was an ICE van. This is happening today. In our communities, our youth are afraid. And so thank you for putting this order out there. This is incredibly important for families, for children, for teachers who are listening tonight. A reminder that our public schools do not ask for families' immigration status. Our public schools do not coordinate with ICE. Our public schools do not allow ICE agents into facilities without a criminal judicial warrant signed by a judge. And our public schools don't share student records with ICE without a parent, guardian consent, or court order issued by a judge. It's really important for folks to know their rights and to remember that this is happening now, today, to our kids in this city, in this community. So thank you for this order. I'm looking forward to hearing more in public health and public safety. Councilor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks, Madam President. The ACLU had come out with some Know Your Rights things in different languages. I know I had shared those out on social media. I know a number of colleagues did as well. From talking to the director of SOIA this evening, MIRA, the Massachusetts Immigrant and Refugee Advocacy Coalition, has Massachusetts-specific editions of that that I think would be good, including in Portuguese, which the ACLU did not have. And so I think it's good to point folks in that direction, too, in terms of just knowing your rights. So now more than ever, know your rights.
Councilor Klingon.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, I also I want to sign on and just thank Councilor McLaughlin for bringing this forward. I've also heard from folks from the immigrant community who are extremely panicked. I know that there are some efforts, and I know that there are resources such as red cards and there's some door knockers that have been going out, and I just want people to try to network and spread the word that we're all in this together. This is extremely scary. I mean, besides the schools and the churches, which I think a judge this afternoon did try to block, they're talking about going into healthcare facilities, so hospital, doctor's offices, allowing ICE to be able to arrest people right in the doctor's office, which HIPAA used to not allow, and now it seems like they're heading in this direction. So I think it's really important now than ever that we band together and let our immigrant brothers and sisters know that we stand with them, and I'm willing to put myself on the line in any way I need to make sure that families aren't torn apart and that people know that I stand with them. Thank you.
Okay, this item will be sent to Public Health and Public Safety. Next item.
The next item then will be item 9.5, a public communication from Laura Ortiz submitting an open meeting law complaint against this city council.
We will be moving to executive session to discuss this item. Madam Clerk, can we take roll call to enter executive session?
We can indeed. On the motion to enter executive session, Counselor Mba.
Yes.
Counselor Wilson.
Yes.
Counselor Ewan-Campen.
Yes.
Counselor Scott. Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counselor Burnley.
Aye.
Counselor Said.
Yes.
Counselor Strezzo. Counselor Klingon.
Yes.
Counselor Davis.
Yes. No, keep going.
Counselor Renee-Neufeld.
Yes.
With 8 counselors in favor and 3 absent, this council will enter executive session.
We'll see you there, counselors. Welcome back. Welcome back. Madam Clerk, do we take roll to come back from executive session?
Indeed. This is roll call. Counselor Mba. Counselor Wilson.
Present.
Counselor Ewan-Campen.
Here.
Counselor Scott. Counselor McLaughlin.
Here.
Counselor Burnley.
Present.
Counselor Said.
Here.
Counselor Strezzo.
Present.
Counselor Klingon.
Present.
Counselor Davis.
Here.
Counselor Pineda-Neufeld.
Here.
With 9 counselors present and 2 absent, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. There was 1 vote taken in executive session. In addition to the vote to adjourn, we will now take that vote again in open session. The vote is that the City Solicitor's Office is authorized to respond to the open meeting law complaint by Laura Ortiz on behalf of the City Council. Madam Clerk, we take... we don't need a roll call. Item's approved. Next item.
That is going to return us to the regular order of business and item 4.2, an order by Councilors Strezzo and Pineda-Neufeld that the Director of Health and Human Services discuss the findings from the recent U.S. Surgeon General Advisory on the mental health and well-being of parents and its recommendations to better support parents and caregivers.
And we'll take 10.1 in addition to that.
Item 10.1 is a resolution by Councilor Strezzo that the administration create an annual survey of Somerville parents and guardians, similar to but unrelated to the Happiness Survey and unrelated to Somerville Public Schools, and distribute it through various channels in print and online.
Councilor Strezzo, excuse me.
Thank you. So the first order read was this is a resubmittal and resubmitted from last cycle. I'd love to put this back in equity if we can. And then on that item, or on the 10.1, the resolution, I think, as we know, the city since I think 2011 has done the happiness survey, where 5,000 Somerville residents randomly get a letter in the mail where they are prompted to fill out a happiness survey. How's it working for you in Somerville? Do you like it? What could be better? What can we do? And that is aimed to drive policy in Somerville. And as you recall, what was this in the spring? Or wasn't that long ago, we had the results of the last happiness survey. But I think we need to talk about what parenting was like and guardianship, parent and guardianship here in Somerville as well, a very, very not talked about issue. And I think there's a lot we can do. And while we do have departments that address birth to 18 in the Summer Promise department, however, a lot of child-related or guardian work is done through the public schools, but there are a lot of families that aren't in the public school system. So that's why this resolution is written as that we're really, really talking and identifying the fact that not every child is in the school system, and who are we missing? Where are our gaps? How can we do better? I will also be putting this forward to discuss at a later date, but let's talk about it in committee. So can we send this one to equity as well?
Okay, let's send both of those to equity. Next item.
Item 4.3 is a resolution by Councilor Strezzo that the superintendent of schools consider opening the Highlander Cafe within Somerville High School to the public for regular lunch hours while school is in session, and that the administration address any barriers to this request.
Councilor Strezzo.
Thank you. So, as some of you may remember, back in the day, pre-COVID, Somerville, in the Somerville High School, there's the Highlander Cafe, and it's just not too far away, and it was open during school hours and for lunch, and it was open to the public, and it was a really cool little microcosm where City Hall employees went, and you can find various department heads and various members of the community and just seniors out for lunch or whomever dining there. It was like this little place to be seen and to see. And the food, by the way, was awesome. It was run by the culinary department. This restaurant still exists, but since COVID has not been open regularly to the public. And I think we have a really missed opportunity in not doing so. Now, of course, we on the council do not have jurisdiction over what is open in the culinary department. And at the same time, the culinary department has expressed very much interest in opening Monday through Friday. after COVID, immediately after COVID, a lot of, there was talk about, well, we don't have the staff, we can't get up and running yet. But as far as I can tell at this very moment, we have what we need to make it possible. There are a couple of kinks in the line, but at the same time, we can go there now. So I put forward this resolution. I think it is wonderful for our community to really have an opportunity to meet all kinds of different parts of Somerville we may not always connect with on a daily basis out in our community. We can do so at the Highlander Cafe. I know that we have the veterans events happening monthly, but I want this a regular opened restaurant for us to really connect with each other. I'm asking that this please be sent to the building committee. Let's talk about it.
Okay, we'll send this item to the school building committee. Councilor Mba.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to Councilor Strezzo for bringing this up. I'll probably, not probably, I would like to sign on to it. I'm a little curious about, like, first I attended Kiwani's Christmas party there, and that was also when I heard that the cafe was open to the public pre-COVID, and they were asking me, like, is it going to continue? And I wasn't sure. So I guess maybe not necessarily through you, but I'm wondering, like, do you know how it is used now and how the students are engaged? Do you have any idea? You know, are they unpaid? Are they paid? You know, because the new hours, I'm wondering, like, if it's going to change the student schedule, like how, just that engagement with students and the dynamics, like, I'm curious about, like, its implications.
Councilor Strezzo.
Madam President, through you to Councilor Mba. I know that the culinary department is responsible for the hours, and then the vocational department would be the director of the department would be the best person to speak to about that. I do know that, as through you to our counselor, I know that that the event space can be reserved and parties can happen. I know that, as we know, we've had events here in the city that has been catered by the culinary department just recently. As I recall, was it Christmas area timeline? It wasn't that long ago. I still have that fresh memory, so we're doing okay. But the food is great, and the students really want the experience, and so do the instructors, and so does the vocational department. So let's do everything we can to really get that back into the air.
Okay, we'll send this to School Buildings Maintenance Committee. Next item.
Item 4.4 is an order by Councilor Ewan Campen that the Director of Water and Sewer appear before this council to address resident claims that newly installed water meters are falsely registering air pockets in residential cold water lines as leaks, leading to significantly inaccurate bills.
Councilor Ewan Campen.
Thank you, Madam President. I am sorry to say I have an entirely new and, in my opinion, potentially quite concerning issue about the newly installed water meters in Somerville. I have a constituent who reached out to me last fall saying he believed that his water meter was falsely measuring a leak that didn't really exist and costing him something like $600 a year extra. Certainly not the first time I've gotten an email about a water bill. Not the first time I've gotten an email of someone thinking that they had a leak that they didn't think they really had. What got my attention, I will say, is that this constituent really knows what they're talking about. This is a person, he just so happens to have a multi-decade career in engineering, specifically in monitoring systems and diagnosing problems with them. So over the last couple months, I will just say he has, I'm certainly not an expert, but he has really convinced me that this is a real error. What happened is he's getting notifications on the app that he signed up for saying there's a leak, a very small leak. It's kind of constant, very small, so he didn't think about it, but then it kind of kept going on. And he started doing more and more diagnostics, and he, at this point, figures out, he thinks he knows what's happening. He thinks that there are very small air bubbles in the line that are being misread as a leak. This is his words. These new meters falsely register air pockets in residential cold water lines as leaks that can constitute substantial fractions of a water bill. Although several things can create the air pockets, the most common are called expansion tanks, installed on cold water lines adjacent to water heaters. These are basketball-sized tanks, usually put in standard operating procedure by plumbers, often required by code, at worst harmless, and I'm guessing that at least 10% of the city's residents have them. I had one, and he believes that it cost him $600 a year for water use that didn't exist. He tells me there should be a simple software fix. Shouldn't be an issue with replacing all the meters again. This should be kind of detectable mathematically, and they should be able to fix it. So the obvious thing that the city councilor would tell their constituent to do is contact Water and Sewer, which this person had already done months ago, was then referred to the company that installed the water meters that we contracted with. And his perspective is that he was basically kind of punted around and was told, kind of, it wasn't dealt with. I will say, it's quite frustrating that it's taken this long, but since this order was posted on an agenda, I've been informed that the president of the installation company is now meeting with this person next week. Maybe, I want to be really clear about this, maybe the constituent's wrong. I don't know the answer for sure. This could just be wrong. And if that's the case, so be it. I'll be the first to admit it. But I have I have a gut feeling that it's right. That's my suspicion. And I have a feeling that kind of the responsibility was unclear where this laid. And so I have this order in just to make sure that we keep up the public pressure that this doesn't get swept under the rug. We obviously need to figure out if it's real, if it's widespread, and just treat everyone fairly. So I'd like this to go to Public Utilities for further conversation.
Councilor Klingon and Strezzo and Wilson would like to sign on, and Burnley and Said. Councilor Strezzo.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you to Councilor Ewan Campen, can you update the council when the constituent reports back with his meeting with the president? This is astounding, and I'm not even going to finish that sentence. Thank you.
Councilor Davis.
Thank you, Madam President. Just clarification through you to the good councilor from Ward 3. Just I want to make sure I understood correctly. So when this constituent contacted Water and Sewer and explained the issue, the constituent was told that they should contact the company themselves.
Madam President, I don't want to get my time. I don't want to claim things that I don't know 100%. That is my understanding. If I'm wrong, Director, please correct me.
No further questions.
Okay, we'll send this item to Public Utilities and Public Works. Next item.
Item 4.5 is an order by Councilor Ewan Campen that the Director of Capital Projects update this council on installing a water fountain at Nunziato Dog Park.
Councilor Ewan Campen.
This one's good, Madam President. Later on this agenda, there is an excellent update on this, which is that the Community Preservation Committee has recommended a $200,000 grant to put water at Nunziato Field. Just for anyone who doesn't know, this is the large field and dog park at the corner of Summer and Vinyl. It's, to my knowledge, the only large kind of playing field and dog park where there is no water fountain. I joined a year and a half ago, maybe, with a large group of constituents advocating to the city to do this. And just as a little bit of history, the previous administration had a long-term plan to put a large water storage tank, stormwater overflow, under Nunziato and totally redo the park. That has been kind of tabled. It's not on the 5-year capital plan at this point. But there was sort of, when I came on as a new councilor, it seemed to me that there was this attitude like, we're not going to spend $1 in that park because we're going to tear it up at some point in the near future. I've never agreed with that approach, and I'm really glad to say that the administration kind of took the opportunity with the sewer work happening on Summer to run sewer lines over. And so they have, it seems like this is going to happen, and the only update I want at this point, and I'm just happy to get it in writing, doesn't need to go to committee, is on the timeline and where it'll be located. I'm interested to see. So I wanted to share that with the public and with my colleagues. Thank you.
All right. Did you want this to committee?
No, thank you, Beth.
This item is approved. Councilor Mbaugh would like to sign on to that. Next item.
Item 4.6 is an order by Councilor Ewan Campen that the Commissioner of Public Works construct an ADA-compliant sidewalk path around the large tree at the corner of Walnut Street and Summit Ave.
Councilor Wilson would like to sign on, and Councilor Burnley. Councilor Unkampen.
Thank you, Madam President. Anyone who walks up Walnut Street knows what I'm talking about. There's a really large tree, and the sidewalk is totally blown out. You can't possibly get a wheelchair over it, a stroller, anything like that. In the past, I've put requests to the engineering department. Those have not gone anywhere, so my ask tonight is that engineering and all the other departments cover your ears, and DPW go out there when they're not paying attention and just build it. Just build a sidewalk that goes around the tree, a little bump out, while the other departments have their eyes closed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Scherzer would like to sign on to that as well, and Councilor Mba. Councilor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks, Madam President. In finance, towards the end of last year, when we approved the street and sidewalk reconstruction bundle for this year, there's a new ADA component in that, and I asked specifically about this spot. We all know this spot. It's infamous. And pleaded with them to please prioritize looking at this, just because of it's one on a main access street into Union Square. It's ridiculous. Answer was, yeah, it might happen. So I guess we'll see. But in the meantime, I like Councilor Unkampen's suggestion as well.
All right, this item's approved. Next item.
Item 4.7 is an order by Councilor Ewan-Campen that the Director of Mobility discuss with this council the feasibility of signal priority for MBTA buses in Union Square.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Thank you, Madam President. This one I'd like to refer to traffic and parking. I'll just say briefly, we all know traffic is a disaster in Union Square. That is nothing new. It has been forever. Signalization is really complicated. The city has done a lot of work on the signalization that I appreciate, but I would be surprised if this hasn't already been considered, but I'm unaware of those efforts. I would really like to understand what can, and hopefully cannot be done in terms of signal priority for MBTA buses. There are really critical bus links in the middle of Union Square that just get trapped in this morass of traffic. So if there is a way that we could speed that up, that would be enormously beneficial, and I would love to learn more about what's possible.
Okay, we'll send this to traffic and parking. Next item.
Item 4.8 is an order by Councilors Ewan-Campen and Mba that the Director of Mobility develop plans for a safe pedestrian crossing of Lowell Street at Bailey Park and additional traffic calming measures between Sumner and Highland Ave.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
I want to thank my colleague, Councilor Mba, for co-sponsoring this, and I'd ask that it go to traffic and parking, please.
Councilor Said.
Through you, Madam President, I would like to thank both councilors for this item. I would just say that the crosswalk for Lowell Street is something that I've been hearing about from a lot of constituents in Ward 5 since the Magoon Square stop opened. Since day one, there is no crosswalk, and it's extremely unsafe. We have a lot of parents that are using it with little children. So I would just say that I have been in communication with the administration, with the engineering department, with the mobility department for months now, because they require an approval from Mass DOT. It's been a really long process, and I even tried to involve our state delegation. So I thank you for putting in an order. That way we can track it and we can keep asking that we speed up the process so we can have a crosswalk there.
Right. Any other comments? So we'll send that to traffic and parking. Next item.
Item 4.9 is an order by Councilors Ewan-Campen and Mba that the Director of Inspectional Services report to this council in writing what types of demolition permits are granted without requiring an on-site fire detail.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Thank you, Madam President. This order was inspired because there was a group of residents witnessing a demolition where there didn't appear to be a fire detail on site. They were very concerned about that. Since that time, I had a really productive conversation with ISD, with the fire department, and the answer, I'll just say it here, is that demolition does require fire detail, but there are some cases where the fire detail is there, confirms that there is nothing flammable on site, and then departs. And that's what happened in this particular case, and that is the policy. Our ordinances require it clearly. It's part of every demolition permit request, and it's always taken extremely seriously. The priority is to make sure that there's nothing flammable left on the site at the end of demolition. So at this point, I don't believe this needs to go to committee, and I want to thank Councilor Mba for co-sponsoring this.
Okay, this item's approved. Next item.
Item 4.10 is an order by Councilor Mba that the Director of Veteran Services report to this council on any plans to honor the memory of Airman Staff Sergeant Loring E. Lord, a Somerville resident and high school graduate who was shot down over Germany in the spring of 1945.
Councilor Mba.
Thank you, Madam President. This article about Sergeant Loring appeared in the Boston Globe last Saturday. So, because he was a Somerville high school student, it seems especially important that this occasion of his return, should be given a solemn tribute. So his remains were recently recovered and identified, and they are being returned to Massachusetts for burial. So Somerville should organize a fitting tribute and make sure that this service and his sacrifice are remembered for future generations. Thank you.
Councilor Burnley.
Thank you. Through the chair, I think this is an incredibly timely request, and I'm very happy to know that we did find this person's whereabouts so long later. In fact, 80 years later. And given the political climate that we're in, and also the fact that Monday will be International Holocaust Remembrance Day, I think this is also an incredibly opportune time for us to reflect on what brought the United States into World War II beyond Pearl Harbor, and the scourge of Nazism, of anti-Semitism, of racism, and when it is combined with state violence and militarism, the kind of havoc that it can wreak upon the entire world. So I think this is an opportunity for us to have to honor a man's memory, and also to recognize the important fights that we still have to take on today. Thank you.
Okay, this item's approved. Next item.
Item 4.11 is an order by Councilors Wilson and Ewan-Campen that the Environmental Health Manager update this council on the current policy regarding usage of second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides and any plans to remove the ones currently deployed in bait boxes in light of multiple recent bird of prey deaths apparently related to ingesting rat poison.
Councilor Wilson.
Madam President, we've had some recent high-profile deaths of our city's raptors who provide natural rodent mitigation. Testing has revealed high levels of these esgars in the system of the owl that was killed in December. Still awaiting test results on the second owl that was killed earlier this month, but it looks very likely to probably return the same. So last year we'd heard in rodent issues in a meeting that the city staff were moving away from widespread use of these esgars, saving them as sort of a last resort in the case of just really extreme infestations. So just here, I stand with the community and being really upset about these recent owl deaths, and I'd like to get an update from city staff on our current esgar usage practices, as well as how many esgars we think are out there on the ground in those ubiquitous black bait boxes that we see all over the city. So I'd ask this be sent to Rodent Issues so I can schedule a meeting in the coming weeks and get some answers. Thanks.
Councilors Strezzo, Klingon, Davis, Burnley, and Mba would like to sign, and Said would like to sign on. And Councilor Burnley, was that a question? Okay, Councilor Burnley up next.
Thank you, Madam President. I think we all understand that we are at war with rats, and no one wants to kind of let up or say anything in a public meeting that could be construed in the press as suggesting we should let up. That said, this is really nuts. I mean, it's just like every year we see these reports of owls dead, hawks dead. It's a really serious problem. I don't pretend to know like the perfect answer. I don't think that any city has figured this out exactly. I don't know if it's like a simple switch you can turn, and I have a suspicion that largely it's private use of these poisons, by volume, I would just suspect. And I just hope that we can continue having this conversation and continue like raising this as, despite all of the energy that we are rightfully putting into the rat infestation across the city, that we're doing everything we can to make sure that we're not destroying the local ecosystem at the same time.
Councilor Burnley.
Thank you, through the chair. On that, I recently had a conversation with Save Wildlife Somerville, who forwarded me language for a potential ordinance from Newton. In 2021, according to the Massachusetts.gov, the first bald eagle death in Massachusetts from rodenticides was confirmed, and it was a locally beloved bald eagle that many members of the public in Newton were quite sad to see die because of these poisons. And as a result, the city took action to ban the use of rodenticides on public land and city land. That is an action that we could take, and I will be conferring with our legislative analyst about that language and whether it needs to be updated significantly for the purposes of Somerville, but I look forward to the discussion in committee to get a better sense of, obviously we are using these to a certain degree, but whether a more proactive step is necessary. I'll also add that based on my conversations, advocates around this topic are looking to have municipalities ban these as a way to demonstrate to the states that there needs to be more action statewide. And I think Somerville can play a role in that broader coalition. Thank you.
Councilor Wilson.
Yeah, Madam President, just on that, just small clarification. The Newton thing was actually an HRP, a home rule petition sent to Beacon Hill. It does require authorization by the legislature. Newton and one other community did this. They're still, we wouldn't know anything about this, but their home rule petitions, believe it or not, are sitting there still awaiting action from Beacon Hill. But yeah, hopefully it would be great to see some action at the state level. I'd love to see us be able to look into banning those, so yes.
Okay, this item will be sent to the Rodent Committee. Next item.
Item 4.13 is an order by Councilor McLaughlin that the Director of Housing Stability update this council on recent changes to condo conversion and tenant protection laws as a result of the 2024 Housing Bond Bill and how Somerville may strengthen its protections.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Madam President. I was having a conversation with a great state senator, Lydia Edwards, a real champion for housing in Massachusetts, talking about some recent accomplishments on the state level that a few years ago we would thought would never have happened before. So the state housing bond bill is addressing many things, but in one thing in particular, condo conversion, and brings things up like right of first refusal, rent control for condo units, moving expenses, a lot of great things that I should have assumed that the city of Somerville has already been ahead of the curve on all this. So my next phone call was to Ellen Shatner, who informed me that a lot of this language was based off Somerville. So once again, we're leading the way on this item. But it is something worth discussing. Director Shatner told me that basically a lot of these things we're already doing, but maybe we can re-examine it and see what more we can do. And I'd like to see us do as much as we can to strengthen the condo conversion ordinance, which we should all be very proud of, has influenced the entire Commonwealth now.
Okay, would you like this to go to a committee?
I say Housing and Community Development, please.
Let's send this to Housing and Community Development. Next item.
Item 4.14 is an order by Councilor McLaughlin that the Director of Housing Stability update this council on efforts to raise awareness for eviction sealing assistance in light of recent state legislation enabling the sealing of evictions.
Colleagues, can you take the conversation outside? Thank you. Councilor McLaughlin.
Same conversation, same person, same results. Good things happening on the state level about housing stability and the sealing of evictions. So talking to State Senator Edwards, she is encouraging cities in the Commonwealth to have public meetings to discuss eviction sealing. I find one of the things that's the greatest deterrent to people getting assistance is paperwork. People don't like going through the bureaucracy of filing all this paperwork for something like an eviction sealing, when we have an entire department of people who might be able to help us with that. So I'd like this to go to Housing Community Development as well, and just start the conversation about letting people know that you can have your eviction sealed so it won't hurt you when you search for a home in the future.
All right, would you like to send to
Housing Community Development.
We'll send this to Housing and Community Development. Next item.
Item 4.15 is an order by Councilor McLaughlin that the Director of Economic Development and the Director of Infrastructure and Asset Management update this council on the potential impacts of the proposed soccer stadium in Everett.
Councilor McLaughlin.
So huge news, hopefully good news in the future, is there's a potential soccer stadium being built in Everett, which if you were in any other city in America would probably be Boston, and we'd be Boston too. It's practically Somerville. I can see the casino from my house, and the soccer stadium is going to be right next to that. I think it's going to be a great thing. But there's concerns about traffic, as always, and the amount of congestion that might come there as a result. I'm interested to see if the city's thinking about this and how to address it. We do have a potential pedestrian footbridge that's going to go from Everett to East Somerville to Assembly Square specifically to their train stop. And I just think now is a good time to start thinking about how can we mitigate traffic to the best of our ability. I think traffic and parking would make sense for this.
Okay, I know Councilor Wilson would like to sign on. Would you like to sign on, Councilor Strezzo? Want to make a comment?
Yes, but also a comment.
Okay, let's come back to you. I saw Councilor Wilson first, and then Councilor Strezzo. Go ahead.
Thanks, Madam President. Yeah, and there's an update I saw maybe in the last 2 weeks that the width of that proposed pedestrian bridge has become controversial because the initial design called for it to be too really narrow, considering how many people you're talking about going to a 25,000-seat stadium potentially. And the update was that width is potentially back on the table in terms of talking about a wider footbridge. So there will be an opportunity upcoming for Somerville residents to go out and advocate for a wider footbridge between linking Assembly and Everett. And when that comes out, I hope we help spread the word and get a big turnout to advocate for the footbridge that we need for that space.
Councilor Strezzo.
Thank you, Madam President. Well, first on the footbridge, as I recall, it was originally designed to be 14 feet wide, and then I don't know, probably to save some costs, has been whittled down to 12 feet, which I think is not safe, especially when we think about electronic, like scooters or bikes or just pedestrians like intersecting each other, and it could be a big mess. And I think that 14 feet is a reasonable request on that. And I think the extra funds that it would cost is well worth it as well. But getting back to this order, Madam President, through you to Councilor McLaughlin, I would love to see this in Housing and Community Development because I really want to discuss, are there neighboring community benefit agreements that we are being offered? And I'd love to sit down with Economic Development and talk about this in committee with what are we to gain with this? How is this going to, in addition to how it's going to affect us, but is there anything on the table for this? Where is the process on that?
Councilor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm open to that because, yes, it is about more than just traffic. I do view the stadium as a community benefit as well, so I think it's going to be a positive thing for everybody. But going back to this footbridge, that was originally going to be paid for by the casino, then the state was going to pay for it, and now the crafts, who have a lot of money, want to build there as well. So we should be talking about who's paying for this footbridge and who's paying for the traffic mitigation. So Housing Community Development sounds fine to me.
Okay, let's send this to Housing and Community Development. Next item.
Item 4.16 is an order by Councilor McLaughlin that the Director of Health and Human Services and the Chief Fire Engineer update this council on potential impacts of a proposed lithium battery complex in Everett.
Councilor McLaughlin.
So I am less excited about this, Madam President. The Haley administration recently approved permitting of a lithium battery complex in the city of Everett next to the casino and the soccer stadium, which I'm not an expert, but sounds off to me. So there's safety concerns about this that I will try to limit to just the city of Somerville and hope that the good people of Everett are keeping tabs on this as well. I'd be interested in taking this up in public health and safety and just see if the city has any concerns about this proposed project.
Okay, would you like to send to committee?
Yes, public health and safety, please.
Let's send this to public health, public safety. Next item.
Item 4.17 is an order by Councilor McLaughlin that the Director of Mobility work with MassDOT to increase flex post usage and other pedestrian safety measures on crosswalks along McGrath Highway.
Councilor McLaughlin.
So, Madam President, I'm sure everyone has seen the $43 million bond that we're getting from the federal government to overhaul McGrath Highway, which is going to be a great transformative thing in the distant future. Presently, McGrath Highway remains a highway separating the community, East Somerville, from the rest of the city. And I was talking to a crossing guard there recently who is still concerned about getting kids across the street, and things like they narrowed the lane down from 3 to 2 lanes, but those barrels mysteriously disappear from time to time. The potential use of flex posts and other short-term resources to address traffic issues and speeding. So I'd like this to be referred to committee. This is a state property, I should add, but I do think the city of Somerville should be thinking about it, and if we can come up with some short-term solutions while we wait for this amazing transformative project to happen, it'd be helpful. Traffic and parking, please.
Okay. We'll send that to traffic and parking. Next item.
Item 4.18 is an order by Councilor McLaughlin that the Director of Mobility address the increased traffic along Lombardy Street, Mystic Avenue, and Grand Union Boulevard due to signal changes.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Just very quick, we used to have a left-hand green light, and that doesn't exist anymore, and it's creating a lot of problems. I'd be very curious what we can do about this. Traffic and parking, please.
Okay, we'll send that to traffic and parking. Next item.
Item 4.19 is an order by Councilor McLaughlin that the Director of Parking place no idling signs on New Washington Street behind the Cobble Hill Complex to discourage large truck idling by the senior homes.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Something for the good residents of Cobble Hill that has nothing to do with the public safety building. If anyone goes down there, there's a lot of this dog park. There is a lot of truck access going down there in a Belt Road and other vehicles, large industrial vehicles moving through the neighborhood. They'll often stop at night to rest there, and sometimes we'll leave the vehicles running, which is keeping some seniors awake. So I would like to, at the very least, have a no idling sign there, remind people that there are idling laws in the state and in the city, and have that addressed. Traffic and parking, please.
All right, we'll send this to traffic and parking. Next item.
The next item is item 6A, a report of the Committee on Finance, meeting on January 21st, 2025.
Councilor Wilson.
Madam President, Finance Committee met on Tuesday, January 21st with 4 regular members present and Councilor Said filling in as a 5th member of the committee for the evening. We took up a 20-item agenda over the course of a 2-hour and 44-minute meeting, and we unanimously recommended that you approve tonight the following. Acceptance of 8 grants totaling a little over $900,000, including a senior housing bridge pilot, a community heat resilience pilot, partial funding of the jail diversion coordinator position within CORE, offsetting E911 personnel costs, E911 training and recertification costs, ambulance service costs, fire department overtime costs, and Small Business Success Technical Assistance Program. Also a transfer of roughly $60,000 from Public Space and Urban Forestry's capital account to the ordinary maintenance account for a tree inventory software integration with 311, as well as an appropriation for $110,000 for ongoing litigation costs for the aforementioned 90 Washington Street that we're all really hoping is the final tranche of legal costs with that. As well as a bond in the amount of around $4.8 million for this year's edition of the Sewer Improvements Program, as well as 3 prior year invoices. Those are the things that we're recommending that you approve tonight. Then we talked about, earlier tonight we heard about Founders Memorial Skating Rink. We talked about how the city's currently utilizing it or not utilizing it during the wintertime. We got an update from Parks and Recreation Manager Valesio on all the programming that is taking place there outside of the colder months, and there's a lot of it. Given committee members' questions about the decision to not put down ice in the colder months, we wanted to speak with the Parks and Recreation Director who wasn't able to join us on Tuesday night. So we kept that item in committee until our next meeting on February 11th, when we hope to have the director join us to talk about that decision. We kept in committee as well an item involving satisfying the court judgment with $100,000 from the Water Enterprise Fund retained earnings until we have staff on hand for that. The administration withdrew, and this is going to come up here in a second, item 25-0017, that's a prior invoice for IT. because the dollar amount had changed, and in a good way. It got smaller. We discussed the item knowing that corrected amount. It was verbally announced to the committee, and we were told that this was coming. We had that discussion on it in advance of item 10.6 appearing on tonight's agenda, so it might make sense to take that up here after this committee report, just given its relationship to it. We then discharged with no recommendation a request from the mayor to accept a $60,000 municipal road safety grant. The committee requested a copy of the grant application. This was provided today, but it didn't give sufficient time for it to appear on tonight's agenda as a communication. So just given the interest that was already expressed in the committee in talking about the grant application, I'd like to table this item until our next regular meeting on February 13th, when we can hopefully have this submitted as a communication and talk about an important piece of this. Finally, we had an extensive discussion of the revised Armory master plan draft, including an update from Councilor Said, who's been extremely engaged on this. Councilors asked questions, shared feedback, and reactions to what I will characterize as a really positive development in the process here of late. We have with us tonight Economic Development Director Rachel Ned-Carney, virtually, I believe, to do, if the president is willing to indulge here, a very brief presentation on that updated draft of the master plan. So, Madam President, I'd like to sponsor Director Ned-Carney.
Director.
Good evening, everyone. Clerk, is it all right if I shared screen of the same materials that were submitted, the same presentation from the other day?
Yes, you can share screen.
I think, so whoever's sharing has to stop sharing for me to be able to do that. Okay. Share. Hopefully that is coming in full screen for all of you. So on Tuesday night, we went through a very brief presentation, and I will try and go quickly through this just to get to the changes, summary of changes that we made in the draft that was submitted on Friday to everyone, and then also a summary of a conversation we had with Arts at the Armory with some additional changes that they'd like us to consider. We spent the last few days really going through that, and we do think we'll be able to adjust the plan really minorly and be able to address the requests that they submitted. So first, as a quick summary, we had a public hearing in December at the Finance Committee. Thank you, Chair Wilson. And we also received 149 submitted written comments between then and January 6th. Consistently throughout both, we heard really an urgency to move forward to the tenanting phase in the RFP, as well as a lot of appreciation for all of the tenants that are in there right now producing fantastic programs. Edits that we made, we added a new section covering, just really highlighting more about the tenants that are in there today, as well as the tenants that have been in there in the past that have made this the art center that we know and love. We updated some descriptions around 30B, clarifying what, how 30B relates specifically to the long-term tenancy that everyone would like to see us get to for our tenants. And again, highlighting that, there really is an interest in seeing tenants stay in the building, but also acknowledging that we are bound by 30B again, and really trying to make that link a little bit clearer for everyone. That's the sidebar component. Really the big substantive change between the draft in December and the draft now was a narrowing of the scope for the proposed advisory board. The idea is that we will have an advisory board that will more targetedly talk about tenant selection and then the financial investments. What we're pulling this group out of is pulling them out of the operational day-to-day, really distinguishing that layer of what's operational policies. How are tenants going to work together around use of common areas, sharing the parking facilities, things of that nature? That will will all fall to tenants and staff, and that the way that that engagement is really developed will also be developed with tenants once that slate of folks are selected. To go with, a lot of the questions were about, this advisory board, how are they going to function? We worked in conjunction with the city clerk's office and law to develop a draft set of bylaws for this. And so that was attached to the material that you all received last week as well. And then there were a couple of edits. This is, to cover also the conversation we had with ours at the Armory earlier in the day on Tuesday. We also showed everyone the comments that we received there as well. Again, highlighting that there might be a path for an existing nonprofit in our community to become ultimately the independent governance for the building. Then also looking to where we are this year and what's coming up. So there was a request for a little bit more information on the timeline, the overlapping steps that are going to happen in these next several months as we get through tenant selection and get folks in place in those tenancies. There was an ask from ours at the Armory to consider adding to our list of the arts highlights for the building. Also a little bit about what the programs the city has been running these last few years, those temporary programs, the BIPOC Gallery, the Some Art Space that have been trying to fill the building with life as we've had tenants leave in the last few years during the early days of the pandemic. One of the big questions that they asked us about was, when there's vacancies in the space that the city might consider filling, there was an ask to relook at that process. We've been really diving into that in the last couple of days, and we think we can find common ground and how we can get to a process that will work for everyone. And then also the last thing really that was to just really highlight that this advisory board, we're going to be asking them in their purpose statement, we're asking them to be advising on making that transition to that more independent structure and really embedding that as much as we can, that is one of the things that there should be some checking in on over time to see how we're making progress towards that goal. So those were the changes that had been made, more detailed changes that we heard Tuesday during the day. In the course of the conversation Tuesday night, there's a lot of discussion around things that will come next, how we staff up the building, how we tackle that tenant involvement for those operational policy conversations, and getting into the financials. Again, all of those things will really come, start to sing once we have a slate of tenants selected through that RFP process. So that's where we have landed so far. Looking forward to hearing any further comments from members of the City Council as we take that back and work towards a final version.
Councilor Young-Campbell.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to thank the economic development staff for all the work that's gone into this, all of the Armory tenants, Arch the Armory, and everyone else who's been engaged. But in particular, I just want to shout out our colleague from Ward 5, who this has been one of the thorniest issues that I have seen come up on the council in the 4 terms that I've been here. And I think that this is just a really extraordinary amount of progress that we've seen over the last couple weeks, and I just really want to thank Councilor Said for the work that she has done in assisting this process moving forward. I know that it has not been easy, so thank you for your work.
Councilor Said.
Through you, Madam President, I would like to say a few things about this. First, thank Director Nat Carney for the presentation and for giving the latest updates to the full council. A similar presentation happened during the Finance Committee, but this is, I think, very helpful as we're moving to the next step, which is the final plan. And I have been quiet about this for since November, but a lot of the work has been happening with Art at the Armory and with city staff. So I'm going to take a moment and thank Director Nat Carney for her collaboration since December and her commitment to listening and acting on the feedback received from tenants. And I would also like to thank Art of the Armory directors for their input and for their participation in discussing and negotiating a plan that involves tenant representation. I will say that I have dedicated countless hours this November to the Armory Master Plan, since the Armory Master Plan was released, to ensuring that the city is involving the tenants. I facilitated multiple meetings and ensured discussions between stakeholders are happening in a way they can listen to each other, that the parts of the plan that are unclear or vague are clarified and elaborated on, and that the administration is being transparent and negotiating in good faith. We all want a plan that the tenants can support. As Director Nat Kearney mentioned, one of the big asks and one of the big things that was negotiated is the role of the advisory board. So I'm really glad to see in the revised draft that was reviewed and tenants well listened to in this process. I am also really glad to see that after our meeting this week on Tuesday, the administration is considering making those changes to that were brought up during the meeting by Art at the Armory so that they can make it to the final draft. I will not repeat what those changes are. I would just say one final thing. From what I have seen, from also my understanding, the master plan involves different phases and different parts. I believe that the real work starts after the final plan is released. Just ensuring that the administration is working with the selected tenants after the RFP process is over, so that this is, driven, a process also that is driven by the tenants. So I am looking forward to seeing that. Again, thank you, everyone, for getting us to this point. It was a long journey, so yeah. If my colleagues have questions, I think this is a really good opportunity to ask those questions.
Okay, Councillor Wilson, back to you.
With that, I'll ask that the committee report be accepted as submitted.
Okay, any discussion on that? Clerk Wells, do we need to lay 6A4 on the table?
Can't yet, you gotta accept that.
Okay, let's accept the committee report. That committee report's accepted.
And that puts two items before the council. The first of those is item 24-1694, bonding $4,747,000 for the fiscal year 2025 sewer improvements program.
Let's take a roll call.
On that item, Councilor Mba.
Yes.
Councilor Wilson.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Yes.
Councilor Scott. Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Councilor Burnley. Councilor Said.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo.
Yes.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Pineda-Newfeld.
Yes.
With 10 councilors in favor, none opposed, and 1 absent, that item is approved. The next item before the council now is item 24-1659, which is a request of the mayor requesting approval to accept and expend a $60,000 grant with no new match required from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security to the Police Department for traffic safety enforcement.
Let's lay this item on the table. Next item.
Madam President, do we want to take up item 10.6 while it's fresh in our brains?
Let's take 10.6.
Item 10.6 is a request of the mayor requesting approval to pay prior year invoices totaling $13,730 using available funds in the Information Technology Maintenance Software account for voice maintenance and the Information Technology Computer Hardware account for laptop accessories.
Councilor Wilson.
Madam President, I'll move to approve.
Okay, any questions? Item is approved. Next item.
And Madam President, I'll move to waive the readings of agenda items 7.2 to 7.18 and ask those be sent to Finance.
We will waive 7.2 to 7.18, send that to Finance. Next item.
The next item is going to be item 7.19, a communication of the mayor conveying an update on the non-union employee classification and compensation study.
We'll place that on file with a copy sent to Finance. Councilor Wilson.
And Madam President, good point here to highlight for colleagues that there will be a Finance Committee of the whole meeting about this, as well as the community's FY26 budget priorities. There was a public hearing on that to start, followed by the presentation from the administration on this item on January 30th.
Okay, thank you. Next item.
Item 7.20 is a communication of the mayor conveying the 2024 Surveillance Technology Annual Report.
We'll place this on file. Councilor Davis, would you like this also in legislative matters? With a copy sent to Leg Matters. Councilor Burnley.
Thank you, through the chair. Typically, I just take a moment to go through this and to bring up points I think are interesting in the document in Leg Matters. Since I'm no longer in Leg Matters, I thought I'd take a moment to just highlight some things I thought were interesting about the report. Two things come to mind. Firstly, the safety sticks, which members of the public may recognize as those strange little poles in Davis Square and Magoon Square. Those are highlighted in this report in detail that there are currently 16 safety sticks positioned near bus lanes and bus stops to capture evidence of illegal parking. I will highlight for the parking department that I think that we can, as we expand and look for new spaces, I think it'd be great for them to speak with the Bicycle Advisory Committee around how we can make sure that this enforcement is taking place in bike lanes as well, because that is a primary concern of safety for many residents who bike in this city. And I think it's quite interesting that the council made it possible for this technology to be legally used in the city from my perspective, with partially the explicit hope that this would reduce parking and idling in bike lanes. So I'd like to see that move forward. Another point in the document that I found quite interesting is that in the section regarding ShotSpotter, there seems to be some kind of discrepancy in what that has been presented to us. In the first situation, the police department noted that there were 22 ShotSpotter alerts. And then just a few lines down, they say that there were 14. Now, in between that, they do make a note that ShotSpotter alerts are put into the crime bulletins when officers go out and confirm that the alert resulted in some evidence. So the report seems to imply that not every alert is actually a confirmation of gunfire. But having said that, I'd love for someone in Leg Matters to just check on that discrepancy. Is that just an acknowledgement that 8 of those alerts resulted in no confirmation of gunfire? Just want to see if we can get some clarity on that. Thank you.
Okay. We will send a copy of this to Legislative Matters. Next item. Item
8.1 is an officer's communication from the Planning Board conveying recommendations for items 24-1447 and 24-1448.
We'll place this on file with a copy sent to Land Use, please.
Item 9.1.
Councilor Burnley.
Thank you. I'd like to waive the readings of 9.1 through 9.4 and ask that they be approved.
Okay, those items are approved.
Add 10.7.
Would you like to add 10.7 to that? Maple syrup boil down?
Through the chair, just because I feel bad for the Canadians right now, I'll make sure that that is approved as well for the Maple project. Thank you.
Okay, that item's approved. Next item.
Item 9.6 is a public communication from 3 individuals submitting comments regarding a ceasefire.
Place that on file. Next item.
Item 9.7 is a public communication from Amy Bennett submitting comments regarding item 24-1580, the draft Armory Master Plan.
Place that on file. Next item.
Item 9.8 is a public communication from Prachka Waditwar, submitting comments regarding COVID-19 response.
Place that on file. Next item.
Item 10.2 is an order by Councilor Wilson that this City Council hold a public hearing in the Committee on Finance on the community's fiscal year 2026 budget priorities.
Councilor Wilson.
Madam President, as you all know, we are required to do an annual public hearing on the proposed budget in June. Our charter that we have been working on for so long, the proposed charter contains language that would require a public hearing basically before the cake gets baked, when there's input on the ingredients by February 15th, I believe, is the deadline. So again this year, in keeping with the spirit of what we hope will become our new charter, I think it's important that we just start doing this now. So this will be the first part of that Committee of the Whole meeting on January 30th. Be an opportunity for the public to come tell us about what they want to see in this FY26 budget.
Okay, we will approve this item with a copy sent to Finance. Great. Next item.
Item 10.3 is an order by Councilor Burnley that the Director of Economic Development work with the Licensing Commission to ensure the creation of on-site social consumption licenses are discussed at upcoming meetings.
Councilor Burnley.
Can we take this up with 10.5?
And 10.5.
Item 10.5 is a resolution by Councilor Burnley urging the creation of supplemental hospitality and event organizer licenses for on-site cannabis consumption.
Councilor Burnley.
Thank you. As folks may remember, last year I put forward an item, which is attached to this item, item 24-1068. Just noting that for years, this Commonwealth has technically made social consumption, that is on-site consumption of cannabis, legal since we legalized marijuana in general. At the same time, it has never been allowed because the Cannabis Control Commission, the CCC, which regulates the issuance of licenses for marijuana establishments, has never gotten around to creating a policy framework for regulations around this. And last year they had put forward some regulations, but we're still working on them. Now there's been an update as of December of last year, and I'd love to see Somerville, which was initially supposed to be one of the first communities as part of a pilot program to have social consumption, be front of the line when these regulations get through the public input that they're currently receiving. And having gone through some of these regulations, the updated regulations create 3 different classes of license related to social consumption: supplemental, hospitality, and event organizer licenses. Supplemental licenses allowing for existing cannabis businesses, marijuana establishments, legal term, and qualifying marijuana establishments to allow on-site consumption of cannabis, picture going into the goods, and then purchasing something, and then being able to actually use what you purchased, where you purchased it. Hospitality licenses would allow for those businesses, those qualifying businesses, to partner with other non-cannabis businesses to host events and have on-site consumption in mixed-use spaces. So essentially something like if the goods wanted to partner with, I don't want to say the Burn, but a restaurant that wasn't serving alcohol, because there is some interesting stuff in the regulations about alcohol and cannabis being on the same premises. But a restaurant that was a dry restaurant could partner with the goods and then allow on-site consumption using the hospitality license. And an event organizer's license would be a temporary license for any qualifying entity or organization that wanted to, put something on this agenda, like with so many things that come up, and say that, you know, could be potentially a park. Let's say, in theory, a park, and say that they want to host an event there where cannabis will be consumed on site, with the limitation that there not be more than, the event lasts for no longer than 5 days, and that there be no more than 24 events per year per entity. These are a bit complex and a little muddled licenses, categories, but it is very, very important that our city, I think, do the homework as early as possible so that we can be at the front of the line for the issuances of these licenses, particularly given that we have a number of residents and local businesses that have been advocating around this for many years. At least one entrepreneur of which came before the council last year to speak about this issue. So I just want to lay that out and make it very clear so that Director Nat Carney and the commissioners of the Licensing Commission could just have a basic, broader understanding of what I'm asking for here, frankly, and hopefully we can have those conversations in their committee so that Somerville can become the Amsterdam of New England. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, do you want to speak on this?
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to say, for the benefit of the whole council, because I don't often get to come before you all, that this is something that my office is working on. We've got a cannabis working group that includes a group from our licensing team, Health and Human Services, zoning, economic development, law, who are all working together, and we're very familiar with the regulations that have been put forward by the Cannabis Control Commission. We are eagerly anticipating their final release in what is anticipated to be June, and we look forward to having some ordinance language before the council shortly thereafter. So one of the things that I want to flag is that the council really does have the ability to be very deeply involved in that process through the approval of those ordinances. And the mechanism to get things to the Licensing Commission is to delegate that authority to them through ordinance. So as of right now, the Licensing Commission doesn't explicitly have any of these powers, but if that is the way that the council wants to make things move, I'm happy to help facilitate that through that specific ordinance language.
Okay. All right, this item is approved. Next item.
Item 10.4 is an order by Councilor Burnley that the Director of Economic Development present to this council a plan to ensure compliance with Section 8-18 of the Code of Ordinances.
Councilor Burnley.
Thank you. Apropos of nothing that we just discussed, ordinances are great. Big fan of them. Passed a couple in my day. They don't mean as much when they are not enforced. We do have some ordinances, famously, that frankly have not been enforced or implemented by previous administrations, current administrations, and I would hate to see Section 8-18, which was an ordinance I passed last year for closed captioning in the city for accessibility purposes, to not actually be communicated thoroughly to all stakeholders. So I would love to hear how we plan to make sure that more and more folks have this resource available to them in our city in compliance with our laws. Thank you.
Okay, this item's approved. Next item.
Item 10.8 is a public communication from Erica Gennaro submitting comments regarding speed bumps.
Did you want that sent to committee, Councilor?
Yes, please.
Which committee?
Legislative Matters.
Okay. Madam Clerk, can we send 10.4 to Ledge Matters, please? Okay. 10.8, can we place that on file? Great. Next item.
Item 10.9 is a public communication from Saravana Reddy submitting comments regarding snow removal.
Let's place that on file.
And that brings us to the end of the agenda for the evening, Madam
Are there
President.
any late items?
There is one late item before this council.
Councilor Davis.
Could the clerk read the item, please?
I can. A resolution from Councilors Davis and Strezzo that the administration immediately withdraw the school building community feedback survey released this morning regarding the replacement of the Winter Hill and potentially Brown School.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to defer initially to my colleague who sits on the committee, and then I'll speak after.
Okay, Councillor Strezzo.
Thank you. So a little background, colleagues. The committee's called the CAG building. Committee. I can't even remember what the CAG stands for. I'm assuming
Construction Advisory Group.
Construction Advisory Group. Thank you so much, Madam President. Anyhow, the Construction Advisory Group was assembled by the administration. One of the members is a liaison of the council. That is me. We have a member of the PTA board, the president of the PTA board. We have numerous members of Winter Hill School. We have some Brown School members. We have a school committee member, and we have numerous others. We have the consultants that we hired have meetings once a month with us, and each meeting is 3 hours long. Mind you, this is parents and people that are spending their volunteer hours for 3 hours once a month to talk about feedback we've heard in the community, to talk about our feelings about how this is planned. And the administration has made clear that this is a community process, that everyone should be involved and we want to use all voices possible. However, on either the first or second of the many 3-hour meetings at this point, they asked us, the consultants presented a survey of what they think the questions going out to the broader community would look like about should we close the Brown School, or should we rebuild the Winter Hill School at Sycamore, or should we just have that idea of cutting out our green space and creating a school on the Trum Field site? So they asked us our questions in these numerous 3-hour meetings, of which we are putting our children could be putting our children to bed or reading stories, to see what kind of additions would we add to the survey. So it took that feedback, but it looks like the consultant firm released the survey answers exactly as they originally planned way back in the first meeting, and with no additional feedback. And the questions are embarrassing. They are embarrassing. They are very leading. It's very clear that the respondent is driven to conclude what the survey looks like it wants it to conclude. Members of the community immediately picked up on this. The survey was officially released into the broader community this morning, much to my embarrassment. And so numerous members of the committee immediately started responding to the consultant, being like, we didn't discuss this, and we didn't agree to this survey, but it was released anyway. I don't even know if the administration was told that members of the CAG committee were objecting to the way that the survey was going to be presented to the rest of the city. But it went out anyway in a press release this morning. And for a project claiming that really all voices are so important, it is the opposite of that. One of the respondents from the CAG committee said, as written, this is an unprofessional survey. It's a push-pull full of leading questions to manufacture a predetermined outcome. The questions are not written in neutral language and presuppose the priorities and values of the reader. For every question, the supposed context is a single leading piece of information that directly influences the answer. More technically, the response options are unbalanced, where 4 out of the 6 options are variations of the affirmative. The only dissenting option is an open text field other, ensuring that there will be no independent quantitative measure of opposition. There's no demographic-affiliated data collected to even offer the opportunity to correct the sampling errors or outright ballot stuffing. This violates the most basic principles of survey design and ignores the direct feedback of the CAG at the last meeting. Several of the questions are transparently targeted at the Brown community. We'll note that it chooses to highlight income diversity, but neglects that the Brown school has the highest percentage, 18.2% of multiracial students of any school in the district by a large margin. It is also inconsistent with academic research in Massachusetts defining racial diverse schools. To highlight a single definition of diversity is deliberately misleading and deeply offensive. Do you expect us to promote this within our community when it tells those students that their diversity doesn't count and doesn't reflect the diversity of our city? So I am asking, and it doesn't even consider what the Winter Hill School parents and students have been through, and the teachers have been through these past 2 years. None of this survey identifies any of this. It's embarrassing. So Councillor Davis and I put this late agenda item forward, and I would love to hear from him. I know that he had thoughts on this as well.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to the good councillor at large for those thoughts. I completely agree and sign on to them all wholeheartedly. I'll just add that when she and I were speaking today, and she mentioned this, that the poll had gone out, and I thought, well, how bad can it really be? And so I went and dug it up and looked at it, expecting there to be some slant to the questions, and let me stop for a minute and be clear. To the professional consultants who put together the poll, I will assume good intent. I will assume professionalism. I assume that they know what they're doing. So none of this commentary is intended to speak to their ability to professionalism. I assume they were doing exactly what they were told. The poll is a joke. It's just laughable. I was standing in my hallway laughing to the point that my son asked me if I could go downstairs because he was trying to get his homework done. And that's what the laughing only lasted for the first few questions. Then I just got angry. I mean, it's absurd. There, questions like, for example, and I'm going from memory, so if I get to any details on this wrong, then, recognize that I just looked at it a few hours before this meeting. But if I recall correctly, one of the questions about should we have larger schools that combine lots of different types of people, the various answers were all forms of yes. There was like, yes, absolutely. Yeah, that would be good. Well, I think it's all right. Yeah, I like the idea, but we should think about other things too. And then other. And then other. I mean, it made my brain hurt reading this, how completely ridiculously slanted it was, how absolutely obvious to any reader it was that this is, that again, I'll assume that these consultants did what they were told. They were told to put a poll in the field that would unequivocally result in one conclusion, and only one conclusion. And so here's the thing. I've been at this is now my 10th year sitting here. And I spoke about that, I've mentioned this many times, and it's been a while since I've given this little speech, and I'm going to give it again. One of the things that I heard all the time when I first took office was how much frustration my constituents have with city processes, and that how much they feel that it's all a sham, that the fix is in, the decision is made, and every ounce of public process is just whitewash. It's just a complete waste of their time and energy because no input is considered, and the predetermined result is what comes out. And my observations of a lot of those processes suggested to me that that's not really true. And I spent lots of time sort of pushing back, well, no, it's not exactly like that, it's not. And I've said this thing at several points. Many times, this was about the past administration, they made it really hard for me to make that argument. And here is another case where it's just almost impossible for me to make good faith argument to any constituent who says that this decision isn't already made, that this entire process is a sham, that all the time that's being asked of people is a complete waste, because this poll, I don't see any way it can be interpreted to any other end. So the request, and I doubt the administration will do this, is to pull the ridiculous poll out of the field, go back to the committee that was actually formed, listen to the input of the communities. I'll go off where I probably should. I'll go to someplace I probably shouldn't go right here and speak a little bit about sort of my view of the issue. And at the end of the day, any one of the options on the table might be the right decision for a variety of reasons, because sometimes, sometimes there's things that just override other considerations. But the Brown School, and full disclosure, both of my kids went to the Brown School. It's not a perfect school, and we don't do a perfect job of dividing our student body equitably among all of the schools in the city. We have very different schools in the city, and we have a history of having some challenges with that. And anyone who's known me for a long time knows how much I value these national rankings of things and what I think that they're worth. Spoiler alert, not much. But, for whatever it's worth, our old favorite friend, U.S. News and World Report, recently ranked the Brown School the number 5 elementary school in the state, in the Commonwealth. I'm sure it's not, by many measures, the 5th best elementary school in the Commonwealth, but they seemed fit to rank it there. The point is, something right is going on at the Brown School, and I believe, from experiencing myself, that it has to do with its size. Small classrooms, small community, small environment, people feel safe. It's a safe and inclusive learning environment. My opinion is that the last thing we should do is close it down. We should be replicating it across the city. There's so much evidence that this is the model that works for kids, and there's tons of other factors in it. I understand that there's a million different factors in what makes a good school. But to see this poll that it, by my read, was so clearly intended to drive this, by some measure, gem of our public school system out of existence, is just, I don't even know. I don't even have a word for the emotion. It's confounding. I'll stop my rant. The poll is a joke. Please take it down. Please do this process properly. And please think about 20, 30 years from now, how we will look at our education system and the schools that we have to provide learning to our children, and don't make a decision based on a preset idea of what's the only thing we can do. Love for this to come to my school building facilities maintenance committee, Madam President.
Councillor Klingon.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, as the ward councillor that is home to one of the school communities in question, I just want to say I didn't read the survey yet, but just the existence of the survey, it definitely feels like over processes where you have my understanding, my idea of what a community construction advisory group is so that, as a body, they would then put their tentacles out into the community, and you would have, a sounding board of feedback to help make the decision. So to add this, first of all, it's kind of insulting to that group of people, and it definitely seems like it's sort of cover upon cover, so then they don't even have to listen to the CAG, they can just say that this is what the people said in the survey. So I don't understand why the survey is in existence, and I don't think that it was well thought out, and I don't know much about this consultant, but I definitely feel like things are moving really slowly up there, and I hope that, for the sake of all of us, we can get a decision on how we want to move forward from that group, a recommendation, which they can only go as fast as the consultant sets the pace. So, because I know that there's a lot of dominoes that need to fall into place, and the sooner we have a decision on what we're doing, the better. But I appreciate the criticism of the survey, just on the fact that I don't think that a survey is, should be part of this process. Thank you.
Councilor Strezzo.
Thank you. And Madam President, through you to Councilor Klingon, agreed. I don't really know exactly what the purpose of the survey is anyhow. And I don't agree that the consultants have to lead the process. And if they are leading the process, or if, I really want to talk through the fact that these are volunteers in our community that step up to be in this committee. They're not paid. They're spending 3 hours per month, and will probably total over 100 hours a month, probably minimally. I'm sure there'll be more on this alone. For if this survey is an indicator of a prefixed destination, then what exactly is the point? How is that not insulting to our volunteers in our city and our community and our Winter Hill parents and our Brown School parents and families and kids? How is that not insulting them? I want better standards of just not in, it's an insult. It's embarrassing. And I genuinely ask the administration to take this down and really have a long, heartfelt conversation and thought about how this, is this working right now? Is this plan working? And are we really respecting voices in the community of where this goes? And I do agree with Madam President, through you to Councilor Davis. I do believe in the small school model, because some of the voices I've heard, first off, Winter Hill School has the AIM program, has a large population of autistic kids in the building. I haven't heard from many of the parents or kids about that. What I do know that parents have told me about big spaces and making a mega school on Trump Field, which seems where this survey is trying to lead us all to, is the fact that large schools are really devastating for kids that have sensory issues, who are autistic, and the overwhelming, booming, cavernous sound of a mega school is really debilitating if you're autistic or if you have sensory issues. So you will actually be doing harm to the community if we're not taking that into consideration. That's what parents have told me. I don't see any of this in this ridiculous sham of a survey. I don't even hear that conversation at all. I do believe in the small school model. My hope is that every one of our smallest constituents doesn't get absorbed in a mega bureaucracy. And I don't want that. Our kids, our parents, our families, our guardians deserve better. That's how I feel about it. And Madam President, if I may, I would welcome the administration to give a response. I definitely don't want to put anyone on the spot, but I'm happy to, if they would wish to respond or have a thought, if we have someone from the mayor's office to speak on it, I'm interested in it.
Is there anyone who can speak on this? Director Singh?
Through the President, thank you so much for sharing your concerns, Councilor Strezzo. I will definitely take this feedback back to staff. So we're prepared to respond when this item is taken up at the School Building Facilities Committee meeting. And also I know that there is a CAG meeting next week, so I'll of course take this back to staff to address the concerns in that meeting. At this point, I'm unable to speak on the item. I did not have sufficient notice to get the relevant background from staff to update on this.
Councilor Strezzo.
Thank you. Madam President, through you to Director Singh, thank you. And also one more thought. Thank you for reminding me. I want to point out the CAG scheduling. The consultants went ahead arbitrarily and put a calendar date for the CAG. They didn't ask anyone of the committee for this 3-hour meeting. They just arbitrarily put a date on the calendar. That is also remarkably disrespectful to the volunteers who stepped in to be in the CAG building, and just assuming that everyone can make. Because I sent a follow-up email to the consultants on that after that happened, saying, what was the process of you determining this month's meeting date? And they said, well, this is the time that we could get for the department heads to attend. So not anyone in the committee, nobody on the committee was asked what their schedule was like or if they could attend this meeting. But they made sure that the director of finance could make it. That's a little sketch.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, this item will be sent to School Buildings Committee. Any other late items,
There
Madam
are no
Clerk?
further items before this council, Madam President.
Okay, Councilor Davis moves to adjourn.
Came in at the last minute, huh? Adjourn. Yeah, my favorite part of school is when I